Radio Freedom.
KLF is gonna rock you.
Hey, it's Elaine. This is episode 384 of the Orange Pill Investor. I didn't have my mic connected. I didn't have my AirPods connected. So hopefully I am actually saying something. What's up, Dak? What's up, Emperor? Just a April Fool's pump. I expect to dump tomorrow for sure. So I was just checking my feed, and I think it was, Climb That Ladder actually bought a bunch of fucking 290 puts for like this Friday. So I don't know what the hell he's looking at. Maybe just technical analysis. And knows something I don't, but I hate to cheer against the guy, but I hope you lose money on that trade. What's up, Magic? Thanks, Kanal. Thanks for confirming. Thanks, Dak. All right, so today I'm just going to talk briefly. I watched the Hurdle Rate podcast, the first episode, and those guys did a great job. And it made me start thinking about if the hurdle rate for companies is Bitcoin, like is there a hurdle rate for Bitcoin? And it seems like it's kind of a trick question, because since Bitcoin, all it really does is just impose the free market on the world for the first time in history. And it doesn't even really go up in value. It just makes sure that the deflationary benefits in the decrease in prices that technology delivers to the world is captured. And so if I think about what's the cost of capital for Bitcoin, it's actually negative, because let's just say that historically deflation has been like 5%. And every year, everything gets 5% more efficient to make, 5% more efficient to produce. Then a dozen eggs should, I think, what did I pay for a dozen eggs yesterday? $8, something. Like next year, it should be $7.60. And then the next year, it should be like $7.20. And so if you have 100 Satoshis, I don't even know how many eggs 100 Satoshis will get you, but if it can buy you a certain number of eggs this year, it's going to be able to buy you more eggs the year after that, and more eggs the year after that, and more eggs the year after that. So all you really have to do to get richer forever is own some Bitcoin and spend it slower than deflation. Because if you have 100 Satoshis and you can get a dozen eggs for 10 of them, as long as you only spend this is hard to say. So like, you spend 10 of them to get a dozen eggs, but then the price goes down and it only costs you 9. And then the next year it only costs you 8. And the next year it only costs you 7, and then 6, and then 5. Eventually, like, you don't even have to stack sats. So the only reason that it's important to stack sats now is because we're in the early adoption phase of Bitcoin, and we're getting the benefit of keeping up with inflation plus the venture type returns. And eventually that part will go away, but it still won't matter, which is kind of why I take issue with some people. That's, it used to be you had to get to 6 Bitcoin or whatever the hell the number was. And then you had to get to 1 Bitcoin. And then now you have to get to like 0.1 Bitcoin. And eventually when Bitcoin's $1 million a coin, people will be like, okay, well now you have to get to 0.01. But the truth is, it doesn't matter the number, because you get richer forever just holding it, and really not even holding it. Just if you can put yourself on a budget and spend it slower than it's appreciating, you can still get richer forever. And you can see it in real time if you just go to like the Fire Bitcoin calculator, and you can plug in how much Bitcoin it would take you to retire based on a certain appreciation rate. But it made me start thinking about the end game for strategy, because at some point they're gonna have to stop stacking sats. And then does that mean that the strategy trade is over? Because right now the whole allure of the strategy trade is the speculative attack on the dollar, the speculative attack on the bond market. Because Bitcoin does have a negative cost of capital, you can just borrow. Anybody who will loan you money at almost any interest rate. Like, I wouldn't borrow at 50% interest, but I mean anything anything under like 20% interest probably would, if you hold it for a long enough period of time, probably going to work out for Bitcoin. So even like I've done some 0% credit card transfers just to make sure that I didn't have to sell any Bitcoin. But even at like the 19% interest without the 0% would probably work out just hodling Bitcoin. And so if the cost of capital is the amount of money that a business needs to create in order to generate returns for their shareholders, eventually strategy can deliver returns for its shareholders without even adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet, because you only have to spend your Bitcoin slower than the deflation rate. And the deflation rate is about to start increasing exponentially, because AI and humanoid robots that don't get tired, don't ask for raises, don't go on strike, is about to make everything on the planet cost next to nothing. So the deflation rate is about to get vertical. It's a little bit concerning, because for the fiat system to keep up this bullshit charade, they're going to have to artificially create inflate the inflation rate to compensate for exponentially increasing deflation rate. So inflation is about to get crazy scary, and anybody who's not holding Bitcoin is about to get seriously fucked. And I think that's all I got to say about that. See, deeply preserving purchasing power is incredible in itself. Increasing purchasing power through early adoption is icing on the cake. Exactly. Sub strategy. Sailor and strategy will never stop stacking sats. This can continue forever. Well, it can't continue forever because let's assume that Satoshi's million are lost, and let's just assume that no one else's are. So if strategy stacks 20 million Bitcoin, then what's the point? And they're just going to hodl it. If Bitcoin doesn't, I guess I'm a bit of a Jeff Booth disciple, and I've heard him say, many times, and maybe you didn't mean it exactly to the letter that I in the comment, but he said many times that if Bitcoin fails as a medium of exchange, then it will fail as a store of value. So everyone will spend their Satoshis, and that includes strategy. Just breaking it down like as simply as possible, if strategy and I don't know, let's just say BlackRock, if they each had 10 million Bitcoin and nobody else had any, then the only way, it's a zero-sum game. So the only way that strategy could stack sats is if BlackRock traded them some sats. But if everyone is hodling and it's all just sitting in cold storage, then there's no market. So Bitcoin would become useless. The only way that Bitcoin could become useless is if no one uses it, no one spends it. And so even the great strategy, the never sell your Bitcoiners, will have to use it in some way. And if strategy starts to collect a yield on it, maybe they become a Bitcoin bank and they start loaning it out. A loan necessarily puts yourself at risk for losing it. So let's say they make 10 Bitcoin loans and 9 of them pay it back. Well, the 10th one doesn't. Whatever they were going to do with their Bitcoin, start a new company, it fails. They don't pay strategy back the Bitcoin. The other 9 borrowers maybe pay it back, but did they pay strategy back enough to make up for the 1 out of 10 that didn't? And are their sats increasing or decreasing? In a sense, it just doesn't matter as long as they're not losing sats faster than technology is causing the Bitcoin to appreciate. So, and this might be 50 years from now, it might be 100 years from now, but eventually you won't even have to stack sats. They're going to have to come up with a new Bitcoin yield metric. And it's going to have to be like the Bitcoin depletion per deflation rate or something, because you can be richer with your Bitcoin holdings even if your sats are going down. I don't know if I said that the way that I wanted to. Let's see. Strong disagreement that this will ever stop. Well, taking that to its logical conclusion means that if they increase their sats forever, then they will get all the Bitcoin. There's no market if one actor can increase their sats forever, because then they'd get to 1 million, then they'd get to 2, then they'd get to 3, then they'd get to 4, then they'd get to 20, and no one has any sats. So the only way that you can have a market is if there are other people in the market. Victor, Sailor will stop when strategy is priced in Bitcoin and not USD. Yeah, I think that's probably I probably could have said all of that with that one sentence, Victor. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I don't know if he even believes it, but I think he kind of walks that tightrope of having to say the things that the powerful people in the fiat system want to hear, so that hyper Bitcoinization just kind of sneaks up and does its thing. But he does sound pretty genuine though, so I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like, I'd say Sailor's, I don't know, 90% responsible for my becoming fully orange pilled, listening to his What is Money series, like 25 hours of it. And then to hear him argue with Saifedean Ammous on his channel about, generating yield on Bitcoin, and I don't know, it was just kind of weird. All right, let's minimize the chats. Let's check the account, because I wanted to sneak in here while we were above 300 a share. Of course, yeah, let me get rid of that. Let's get signed in. All right. So I had some bills to pay, so unfortunately I had to take some profits yesterday. And maybe if I was a technical analysis wizard and I could read the tea leaves, the financial astrology, then I would have known to wait until today to sell the covered calls. But I needed about 10 grand, so I sold the 10 covered calls, and I don't want my negative cash balance, or settled cash balance is negative. I did withdraw the 10 grand, so I'm assuming once this settles, I'll have just this 20 bucks left over. If I do get completely wrecked on the covered calls, which has happened before, it'll happen again, then we shall see how badly that happens by Friday. So I got poor man's covered calls here. I was waiting to add, I was going to add another few covered calls if this went in the money. I kind of missed. I'm in like 50 cents out of the money. But I think I'm going to go ahead and just add those 3 covered calls on the 300 strikes. It's going to have to be close enough. We're only up like 3% from yesterday, but that'll have to do. All right, so to make this viable, it's not going to be conducive to not losing money based on my original trade price. I'm only looking at its current price. If I had 300 to 87, that gets me to 387. So as long as I sell 387, maybe 400 or higher, I should be fine here. But I think I'm gonna go maybe even a little higher than that. I might go, I don't know if I want to go all the way to 450. Actually, I already have 7 of the 400s. Yeah, I'm gonna do 3 450s here. It's gonna give me a lot of room to breathe here. Let me turn down the volume. And then I'm just going to let that cash chill right there. If I end up having to pay to roll these calls on Friday, I'll just use a couple of a little bit of that cash. The probably most efficient thing to do would be to buy like 4 shares with it. But it's kind of a bit of a hassle just buying shares, selling shares, buying shares, selling shares every other day or every other week. So just for ease of trades, I may leave a little bit of cash in these accounts just for convenience sake. All right, let's group these bad boys. Is it CC 300s? Yeah. All right, so I'll just be sitting and watching to see if these 300 strikes get wrecked. Nothing to do with this set of poor men covered calls. Nothing to do here. Nothing to do here. My June. Oh yeah, I forgot about these. So my June debit spreads. I think I'm going to go ahead and just close these for whatever I can get. All right, let me move this down a little bit for a smaller credit. Let me move this down for a little smaller credit. Okay, there we go. I treat the debit spreads the same way I do the long calls. And dump them if they haven't won by around 90 days. I could just let them expire and die a noble death, but that gave me another $500 to play with. Let me, maybe 600. Let's see, can I get even one long call for that amount? Yep, I can get a September. What's December look like? No, can't quite get a December for that. Oh, when did they sneak the Octobers in? Oh, but that only goes up to 670. All right, let me just grab one. So I rolled my failed June debit spreads out to just a single solitary September 1080. Let's take a look at GME. GME's price is basically just kind of holding steady. And it's a very small part of the portfolio. Doesn't look like there's anything else I really need to bother with. Let's take a look at Tesla. Breaking even on my leaps. And still got plenty of time on this covered call. Losing, not really losing my shirt, but definitely not winning this trade yet, but it's got a year left on it, so not too much to worry about there. I'm still about 25,000 down against my on the MSTY challenge, but let's check up on the comments first. Deck, I think on a long time horizon, they will introduce more decimal places to divide Satoshis, but before then, people will stop accepting fiat for Bitcoin and it will only be exchanged for goods and services. Yeah, I'm hoping I live long enough to see it. Biggest surprise here is that you don't use X on dark. I know. I've had that complaint before a couple of times, and I think I moved it over. I can't remember if I didn't like it. Probably just shows my age. And I don't know if it's my unwillingness to wear my glasses also. Yeah, maybe I will bend to peer pressure and try dark mode out again. Are you still tracking and holding your MSTY position? Yeah. So let's just take a look at it. We're about to get dividends again in the next couple of weeks, I guess. And so I've collected two dividends. I think started out with like 7,310 shares. My cost basis on those shares is $28.52, so down about 7 something a share. But of course, reinvested all of the dividends on both of those dividend payments and added whatever 1,300 shares over 2 dividend payments. And then my positions are about 25 grand behind. The original purchase price was like 215,990, I think, in dollars. And MSTY is down about, I think that account's down to around 190, so it's probably down 25 grand. And then my account is down like 50, I guess. Yeah, so definitely getting punked so far. And let me just see if there's anything I need to do here. I've got the 2 315 covered calls. I've got the September 1080s. And then I've got my poor man's covered calls are all fully allocated. And plenty of time left on the clock. So nothing really to do here. My assumption is that while these Julys got wrecked, eventually some of these bets will start to pay off. Maybe it'll be the Septembers. If we chop all the way through September and I have to give up on those and start buying more Decembers or Januaries, I'll feel personally attacked by the market gods if that happens, but I mean, it could. So my basic assumption was that I was going to plow all of the premiums I collected into these long call positions, and that eventually I would be rewarded for that. Since I've had this account or this challenge going for about 2.5 months, and Strategy's price has been punishing me for that strategy. Well, it says it's down 0.5% in 3 months, but I guess I started, is it mid-January somewhere? Yeah. So probably down 10-20% overall. And since I was adding leverage, I have been getting spanked pretty hard. So optimistic that these will turn around, but so far that has not been the case. Yeah, so no actions really to take here. None of this stuff is ready to roll. All right, let's back it up to the joint account. I'm guessing there's really nothing to do on any of these positions. I've got, well, yeah, if strategy was pumped up to like 315, 325, I would consider adding another covered call here. But I've already got the one. So I think I'll stand pat there. And same situation here. I've just got the one covered call. It's only been open for 4 days. Got 38 left. No reason to rush rolling it. And I could, I suppose, spend my 400 bucks and buy another long call. Why not? All right, fully allocated. Can't do nothing with 70 bucks. Are you rolling your July 1080s? Michael, I will roll them when they get to 90 days to expiration. Where are they? Yep. So I've got another 18 days left on these to pray for a miracle. I'm assuming that even if we got a quick pump to 350 or even 400, these will still be losing positions. But I'm going to let them get their full life before I roll these out. July 1080s are a lost cause. Absolutely agree. Your July 400s are printing. 2140 cost basis. Excellent. Glad to hear it. Deck, what do you think about electric cars? Do you think they are safe long term with all the EMF fields potentially interfering with our cells? Well, that is not a consideration that I had. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that, and I'm kind of paranoid. I wanted to go and get one of the Faraday cages for my the thing where they come and read the electric meter or something. I kind of went down that rabbit hole for a while. So the electric fields does kind of make me a little paranoid, but I got a little bit lazy with it and didn't do anything about it. But I guess, like, even if it's found to be harmful, I think with and I guess you could have full self-driving with a gas car as well. And Tesla will probably lease their full self-driving technology to companies like Ford, and people who are just brand loyal will probably be able to just use full self-driving without buying a Tesla. But eventually I think Tesla's putting all the gas car companies out of business. So unless they find something really bad and serious, I think electric cars are here to stay, and gas is going away forever. Maybe there'll be some rare, super expensive cars. But full self-driving is probably going to save so many lives due to eliminating car crashes that I guess they'd have to find something pretty bad with the electrical fields. Do you have some particular specific research that I can look at, or is a generic Google search for electric cars and EMF? Is there a bunch of info on that already? Yeah, that wasn't really something that I had considered, but I guess it makes sense. Billions of electric cars on the road. I suppose it could do something. When I was in high school, I wanted to have the loudest stereo system I could get. And I remember having to make sure that the power cord for the amp wasn't near the the wires for the radio, because I think it would get into I can't remember if it was the FM signal, but anyway, you'd get like a whining noise in your audio if you didn't keep some of the audio wires from your head unit separate from the power wires on your amplifier. And so even on like even at that level, those waves are have a measurable effect. So I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that electric vehicles might have enough EMF to fuck with us. I just know you care about longevity and was thinking about getting one, but then thought, what if they are harmful? Most things pushed by the governments are not good for us. I need to research it. Yeah, I know what you mean. I've been kind of like leaning towards getting a Tesla myself, and yeah, I had not considered that, so that's a good call out. Might have to check that out. Don't think people who have homes under high voltage overhead power lines have higher rates of some cancers. Yeah, I've heard some things along those lines as well. I know we joke about Bitcoin fixes everything, but eventually I'm hoping that once we can take the fiat error code out of society, maybe we'll get down to getting some answers on those things when people can just do perform value for each other instead of doing whatever they can do to get over on each other. Maybe we'll actually get the answers to some of these questions. Strategy says, yeah, my argument is the sun puts out way more EMF than anything we will be exposed to from a car or electrical systems. Yeah, I hope that's true. All right, so let me check on the 5K account. I'm thinking I won't have anything to do here unless I have something expiring on 4/25, which I do not. So I got my weeklies. I'll just let those run out. Man, Wolf has really taken a dump. And let's see, I've got the 5/9 covered calls against these July longs. Let's see, how are my Septembers doing? These are probably down a little bit. Yeah, down about 20%. Yeah, nothing to do here. I don't think I have any cash to spend. No, $100 buying power. All right, cool. All right, appreciate everybody chiming in. We got into some higher order philosophical stuff today, which is always fun.